Today, I'd like to discuss the executive leadership model. The contents of this model are a hybrid. So I want to make sure credit and resources are acknowledged up front that this is a hybrid or an amalgamation of different things I learned through 35 years in the United States Army and now 5 years as a consultant and an executive coach in the private sector. The elements of this process, I think, are critical in businesses. And I've taught this to startups. I have gone into mid-level companies and attempted to, change the steerage a bit to help them build systems and processes to get to the next level. And I've gone in and I've assessed larger organizations, billion-plus-dollar organizations that are struggling to figure out how to make things not just more efficient and effective, but make the work conditions, the organizational culture stronger to continue in their success and or to branch into different organizations or simply to continue to chase the dream of the original vision of the company. It is a good thing for leaders to step back in their organizations, whether they're the CEO or mid-level management or even developing individuals, to step back and say, where are we? Where are we going? And why are we doing it? There are three big questions that I talk about in a different episode, but they're always applicable when you start talking about leadership and how your organization is moving forward and how to constantly, as the leader, reflect on how it's going and figure out how best to move forward. And those three questions were taught to me when I was a general officer in the United States Army, to always step up onto the balcony and look at the totality of your organization, which is part of the definition of an adaptive leader, and look at your organization and say, what is it that I need to stop doing? There are things that have accumulated over time that may or may not be applicable to where we're going in the future. Or they may just be piling up and adding more and more noise and confusion to your existing organization. And it's starting to stifle and slow down your ability to continue to keep up with your competition and or to keep your workforce motivated when they're starting to get things piled on top of themselves over time. Like I said, that at one point, it was probably a needed process or system or policy, but today it's no longer applicable. And when you ask organizations, individuals in the organizations, why do we do that? The answer will normally be because we've always done it that way. When you haven't always done it that way, the question should be is, do I need to stop doing it? Stop doing things is hard for a company. It's hard for any business. It was hard for the Army to stop doing something. Now you want to do that so you can clear time and resources. Again, resources being people, money, and time. Really, in the case of stopping to do things, get you that valuable asset of time back fairly quickly. And it requires strong leadership to say, you know what, I'm going to take the risk. We're not doing this anymore. And it's always a good drill to underwrite the risk for your subordinates to see the boss is willing to stop doing something. Now, the logic, the rationale for stopping to do something, doing something that you as the leader believe, based on feedback from your subordinates, that it's no longer applicable to the future in your organization, it becomes superfluous noise and it becomes things that are just being done to check the block. So once you get through that and figure out what those are, that gives you this new resource of time and people, and in some cases, money, to focus on the things. The second question is, what is it I'm supposed to be doing in this organization? What is our purpose? Are we actually focusing our limited resources on our purpose? And that's where you have to reassess, who are you, what are you doing, and why are you doing it? Simon Sinek will tell you the other way around. Why are we doing it? How are we doing it? And what are we doing about it? And that's a great way to look at it. And Simon Sinek, if you haven't read him, his two books, Leaders Eat Last and Always Start with the Why, are exceptional and should be in your portfolio as a leader. your reading list that you give your subordinates and your developing leaders is something to consider in terms of leadership styles and leadership intent. And the last question then, after you stop doing things, after you figure out what it is you're supposed to be doing better and applying that newfound time and money and people to the things you're supposed to be doing and doing them is better than anybody else, then and only then you free up the time to think about innovation. What else could we do? What are the other synergies that are out there? Now that I have more time, I'm focused on the basics of what my company is supposed to do. Now can I be more innovative and adaptive and agile to the things to come? Again, you got to get back up on the balcony and look at the totality of your organization, look into the future, anticipate problems, but more importantly, seek out opportunities. The executive leadership model is not the be all to end all, but it's a great way for leaders to think through problem solving. It's a problem solving process, but it's also a way to help your subordinates begin to think like you, not think for you, not to get them all in line to exactly the way you think. It's not what you think, it's how you approach thinking. Okay. And that's what I think what makes this so powerful. Now, to give credit to this format, the 6 steps I'm going to show you, these 6 steps are part of what the Army calls mission command. And I've taken those 6 steps and I've tried to make them more applicable to the private sector and take out a lot of the really advanced steps that were in there and kind of clean it up and make it as simple as possible. It's like all things that you learn. You learn it the first time, it seems complicated. If you use it, if you start to think like it, and again, it's a how to think kind of philosophy as a leader. It's the how to think part. And if you can do that and you can get your subordinates thinking in a similar fashion, then really the sky becomes the limit, because it will breed things like innovation, adaptability, and agility. It'll empower your workforce, and you will get more out of the people you have today than you've ever deemed possible. And that's, that's not a guarantee and it's not a promise, but it is an experience talking to you. In my last job, I had 357,000 ROTC cadets across all 50 states, 4 U.S. territories, and 4 foreign countries. And I had 40,000 plus employees training, teaching, educating, and commissioning them as officers in the United States Army. The scope and complexity of what I had in that last command required me to circumvent the earth to see just a small portion of my organization. These skills that I used based on Army doctrine and personal experience and different degrees attained in the civilian sector have led me to what this video is all about. Thank you, and I hope you learn from it.